As we get into this morning's live, I think I need to turn this down, this TV next to me. The problem is nobody watches TV here, so we basically just turned it on and now I don't know where the controls are. There we go, much better. I put Bloomberg on in the background, but I don't like to hear it. I know it sounds stupid. I just want to see the headlines going across the screen. But anyhow, good morning, everybody. Thanks as always for showing me a little bit of grace as I get here a couple of minutes late. Was just setting up my son, and he's having a good start to the day, so hopefully, we don't bother him too much by doing this live because he's home. It's Saturday, so, he comes out here, we'll deal with it. But thank you all for tuning in. We're in a very, very precarious spot here for XRP. I know a lot of people yesterday with the news of the bank in the USA and then the more of a global dynamic with what happened with the Mina. We'll get into what happened with all of this stuff. We talked about in the live last night. Bro, it's not gonna crash. Who said it was gonna crash? Nadar, reading comprehension is such a key dynamic here. Don't come in here with your emotional nonsense. I said XRP at the brink, why we must break out here to avoid a crash. But it can absolutely crash here. It absolutely could. But no one's saying it's going to. It's just, it could. It's a possibility. But anyhow, with the cryptocurrency community as a whole, Bitcoin is at a spot right now where if it were to fall through a little bit here, it could absolutely have a mini crash here. So it's not that it's impossible. It's actually, there's actually a more realistic chance than you might think about that. But the deepest thing with this, what we're looking at, is there's a lot of, when you get into these points, when you have not just ETF pushes, but when you have the news that everybody's desiring for XRP or Ripple, or when you're seeing it from a global standpoint, how it's exceeding expectations, you expect this. What ends up happening is you want this almost like a jolt reaction, where XRP's price is just gonna now all of a sudden, because this stuff came out. Now we want this to immediately progress in a positive way. And the reality of the situation is when ETFs come out, the exchange traded funds, or when news like this circulates, generally, and I hate to say it, a lot of the big players are front running these kind of things, and they take those moments, not saying they're going to stay out, but they always look for the retracement. They take those moments knowing that new buyers retail that are more inclined to the latest news, because these bigger fish, let's just say, or these bigger players, they already know the news before it comes out. They're on the end. See, they're part of the nice, beautiful club. So they already know what's going on. So a lot of times why this ends up breaking down first and then having more parabolic spikes later is because they use these moments to now sell large portions, and it's able to be eaten up because there's more retail interest in that particular moment. If you don't think it's true, you have a lot to learn about market psychology if you're watching this. And that's a very key distinction that a lot of people don't understand. And it's a very, 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 it's a deep dynamic to cryptocurrency, especially because we're dealing with the risk asset. And when you deal with risk assets, that's where it becomes the most important to deal with market psychology. Because think about it. Is it easier to sell something at a loss or find new money to buy more on a big drop? Especially in today's market or today's economy. Is it easier for retail to sell at a loss, or is it easier for retail to pull money out of a savings to buy more on a drop? I think it's probably the first of the two. And I only say that because at least in the United States of America, we've had the biggest credit crunch in our history. There's more people that are maxed out on credit cards, or approaching their max out state, or at least their average balance, that we're in a situation right now where it's not the second choice. And it's kind of, we're at a weird spot in human history right now. Let's just put it that way. But that doesn't mean we can't capitalize, because I think there's a lot of opportunity in moments like this. For anybody who watches, I thank you so very much. Make sure to hit that like button, because I get shadow banned pretty bad again today. I didn't get shared my own content on Julie's tablet, so I know it didn't go to many. But I'm going to share it myself. But it didn't share it to me. It didn't share it to Julie. It didn't share it to my son's little tablet that I use. So that's not a good sign for trying to get this content out. But I will hopefully, as this live goes on, generally, because we have a good retention rate, which I'm honored about that. Like in the lives, we have a pretty good retention rate. So as long as somebody comes in, most of the time, they're not leaving. So what ends up happening is over time we might start with 40 people, but it'll end up over 100 just by people maybe seeing that we're on, or somebody new comes in and they're like, oh, you know what? There's some pretty good information here. I might not subscribe to them because 30% don't, but I'll come back later and watch, which, that's fine too. Either way, as long as you're getting the information. But let me say hi to some of you, and then I'll get into the intro. And then I really want to attack this. I have something I can read to you from Facebook that I put. It simplifies it so I don't have to go and read through a whole bunch of shit. Excuse my French, a whole bunch of nonsense. But Dan Margin, I'll welcome in. Along with MQT, thanks for being in town over 3+ months with the XP Meteor. Along with Maple Man and MQT, thanks for being a very trusted mod in here and in the Telegram. Silver Days, good morning. Tango, welcome in, and thanks for being in town zone for over 6 months with the XRP Predictor, along with Big Dog. I appreciate you both. Let's see. Silver Day says smash the likes and subscribe. Absolutely. Thank you so much for saying that. We have 47 likes out of 61 people that are in here so far this morning. That's a pretty good ratio. I'm very appreciative of that. Nick, welcome in and good morning. Devin, welcome in, and thanks for being a very trusted mod in here during the lives. And also in Tom's Army for over 2 years with the XP 589 Moon Badge. Do you have any news about Casper this morning? Because I always like to look at it when you're in here. You're my inspiration to keep looking at Casper, FYI. Mark Korf, good morning. Mrs. Stock, good morning and welcome in. And I'm so honored to have you in here and have you in Tom's Army for more than 3+ months with the XP Meteor, along with My Yard Now, and seeing most of you in the Telegram that are in here this morning. About 60% of you. Brendan, good morning. Nadar, welcome in. And we'll see what happens with XRP. Keep your mind open, though, to both possibilities. It'll keep you more in lockstep with what's going on with the actual market psychology. Because that's one thing. We don't want to look at the objective to what we want to happen. Like, I, more than anybody, want it to go up. But the reality is, where we're at in this chart and what's coming on, and everybody has to acknowledge what's coming December 19th. When the Bank of Japan, if they in fact go through with what they're saying, raising rates, the last time the Bank of Japan raised rates, we'll go back and look at what happened to crypto. It was not pretty. That's called a geopolitical nightmare for crypto right now. Kyle Kupiak, welcome in. Good morning. Aurelie, welcome in. Thanks for being in here. I love seeing you in here. Same with you, Kyle. Cape Cod Kyle from Massachusetts. Love seeing you here. Aurelie, good morning. Let's see. Einstein, welcome in. Dan Marge, good morning, and thanks for being in town for over 3 months with the XP Meteor. Rob Clement, welcome in. Looking at Bitcoin heat map, I believe it goes down. We'll take a look at the Bitcoin heat liquidity map. Excellent eye, though. There's definitely some downward liquidity that can happen. 1970 Legend, welcome in, and thanks for being in Tom's Army for over 1 year with the I Told You So badge. And also, a very trusted mod in here, a fellow, well, not fellow, but our friend, a Buckeye down south, as I'm a Wolverine. But, you know, we're on the good side. We're on the good side. You need one for the other. Without the Wolverine, the Buckeye doesn't even matter. And without the Buckeye, the Wolverine will never achieve anything, because God knows we have no standards at Michigan anymore. And just look at Sharon Moore. I've been talking about it for 2 years that this guy is the epitome of no character or integrity. I've been saying it on this very airway for 2 years. Anyhow, Einstein, good morning. Some of the risk assets are now becoming utility assets. Yep. That's what they call it. That's what I've been told. But anyhow, let's get into these charts. Good morning. 11:40 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on this Saturday, December 13th, 2025. I'm XRP Future Millionaire, and I reside in the great state of Michigan. So it says Bitcoin's price rose 2% in 24 hours. A whale moved 5,152 Bitcoin worth about $477 million to a new wallet, holding long positions exceeding 614 million. That's pretty big. That's pretty big. I've likely offended a lot of people with my title this morning, but it was necessary. Like, you need to understand this. Like, if we lose this area, it's not going to be, it's at least going to come to $1.85 at minimum. And that $1.99.9 to me right now is a very important area. Like this, just in the short-term micro setup, I believe this is a very important area. I also believe whoever sees the title and it intrigues them and they come in here this morning, I think are going to be able to offer us a lot of knowledge, maybe on what they feel as well. Because if you're coming in here and you're seeing a title that says XRP at the brink, why we must break out here to avoid a crash, Bitcoin target 72K unless this occurs. If you see that title, you're thinking, I'm not going in there on a Saturday. I'm off of work. I want to see good news. You know, I don't want to see some guy tell me why my investments are going down. It's not just about going down. It's about if we can hold certain things, we can change the whole psychology here. But where we're at right now, on a thinly traded weekend, this is all pointing to be careful. You know, just proceed with caution, and let's see exactly how this plays out. Weekly's massively oversold, which is good. Monthly's pushing into oversold, still leaves area of opportunity. We're still within the bullish megaphone, in my opinion. So for anybody who comes in and actually listens for a few seconds instead of just skipping past what I do because of the title, which I think the title's on point. If I was somebody trading, I would want to know that I need to be hesitant here in the moment to see how this plays out. I would really want to know that. And then we need to get above around $2.18 to maximize our potential for a push up to 263 in the short form, the short order. So I think this is very, very important here. You know, and I'd rather be the villain of crypto because of my honesty than the hero that leads everybody's portfolio into chaotic down turmoil. You know, so look how overbought we are in the 3 hourly on a thinly traded weekend in the stochastic, and the 4 hourly in the stochastic. These are moments when they're like this, and this, especially on a thinly traded weekend when we potentially have little bear flags maybe. But being a thinly traded weekend as well, it can give you opportunity to get this influx of volume because you don't have the futures online. But remember, when we speak the futures, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, we actually closed at $2.55. So we're a little bit above it right now by about 2.4 cents. But nothing real serious has happened over the weekend. I do want to read something that takes place here, which is why when you look at retail, you have to look at market psychology. Because if something doesn't go in our favor, so we have this news, right? So 1 week after, and I shared this on Facebook. I always do this, so if you want to join on Facebook, there's on the video description below and or pinned comments of this very live. There's only two things I share. KRAKEN, which is where I buy my crypto right now on the Tier 1 exchange. And the fees are the cheapest that I can find on a Tier 1 exchange if you do KRAKEN Pro. So you can get in and out, you can swing trade and do whatever you want, not be affected, and still have opportunity. But besides that, the Facebook link is there, and that's where I'm at Facebook, and that's where you can get some of this information. But 1 week after the largest debt buyback in U.S. history, the Treasury just ran another $12.5 billion buyback. Two historic interventions, 7 days apart, funded by freshly issued dollars. If this isn't a sign of monetary stress, what is? Moves like this inject liquidity into the system. Whether they admit it or not, that liquidity always finds a home in risk assets like Bitcoin and crypto. Will feel it soon, and it's true. But generally before it finds the home there, because what they do is they start to buy these things, but they like to buy it on those immediate pull downs that happen. So we have to ask ourselves, what's the appropriate number here? Because they want immediate returns. They don't want to wait 7 months to get, they need instant capital to pay off debt. So if Bitcoin went down to 80, let's say, and then we get a return rally to 102 and retest that rising wedge, they could get an immediate 22% into that buyback. And you're talking about with all their capital that they could technically use, because it always starts out in the treasury bill. So you can't go to Bitcoin and risk assets before the T-bills get loaded. It's just the way it goes. I can't help that, nor can you. You need to know about this. The regulatory ripple effect. Europe adoption in U.S. bank charter drives XRP future. And the whole point of what I just said is think about it. When they inject that capital, all that money's there, and then they're able to drive the price up after they just bought it at a discount. So these are things that we have to pay attention to when the Fed is injecting capital. So the regulatory ripple effect, Europe adoption and U.S. bank charter drive XRP's future. And I encourage you to watch last night's live. I talk a lot about this, but it didn't share my live until this morning, so it's really screwing with my analytics. It waits like 14 hours to share my second live now in the day, which sucks. Major adoption milestone in Europe and ongoing regulatory pursuits in the U.S. are highly relevant to the future of Ripple and XRP. So the breakdown of Ripple payments and Amina Bank adoption. Amina Bank, a Switzerland-based FIMA or FINMA regulated digital asset bank, is the first European bank to officially adopt Ripple payments. And the key implications of this is it's a compliant bridge. This adoption provides a regulated and compliant bridge between traditional fiat banking systems and blockchain rails. This is a crucial solution for crypto native clients like stablecoin issuers and crypto firms who often face friction with traditional banking. That's faster cross-border payments. Ripple Payments is an end-to-end platform designed for near real-time cross-border transfers, bypassing the slow and expensive traditional correspondent banking networks like SWIFT. Focus on stable coins. The partnership is specifically noted for enabling Amina Bank to manage transactions involving stablecoins, including Ripple's own RLUSD, which Amina Bank was already the first to support for custody and trading. And this is validation for Ripple. The integration of Ripple's licensed solutions by regulated European banks strengthens Ripple's credibility and regulatory clarity in key global market. Impact on XRP. While the initial focus of the partnership is on Ripple payments platform, potentially the RLUSD stablecoin, successful institutional adoption of Ripple's technology historically creates a positive narrative and framework for the eventual use of XRP as an on-demand liquidity bridge asset. Broader adoption of Ripple's infrastructure increases the potential demand for XRP's liquidity function. And then we have to go into the U.S. National Bank license and XRP squeeze. And you can see all of this on my Facebook page in real time. Or if you missed the lives and you don't want to watch the whole thing, it's easier for me to put it there because on YouTube it doesn't, you guys know it's not friendly for text writing. So U.S. National Bank license and XRP squeeze. The claim of an imminent U.S. National Bank license and a potential final squeeze for XRP refers to Ripple's ongoing strategic push for deeper integration into the U.S. financial system. The pursuit of regulatory clarity, Ripple applied for a U.S. National Bank charter with the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, OCC. If approved, Ripple would operate as a federally regulated bank. Significance of the charter. A national bank charter would allow Ripple to offer both traditional and crypto banking services, brings its stablecoin RLUSD under federal oversight, and potentially allow it to access the Federal Reserve directly via a Fed master account. The regulatory validation securing a charter would be a massive regulatory validation for Ripple's business model and a major signal that blockchain-based financial infrastructure is being officially recognized and integrated in the U.S. And then I wanted to explain the final squeeze, that it wasn't a price push. The final squeeze is speculative, but it is used to suggest that significant regulatory clarity and major institutional adoption, both fueled by the pursuit of a bank license and global partnerships, could lead to a massive demand-driven price increase for XRP. This scenario is based on the idea that institutions would feel safe using XRP as a bridge currency for cross-border settlement once Ripple is a federally regulated entity. So that can be looked at two different ways, because you could look at it as a squeeze out and they use the incoming liquidity, or they look at it as a safety, so to say, a safe space. And then the inflows for XRP, just so I don't have to go all around the news, I might as well just read what I put. So the XRP inflows reached $1 billion in assets in under 4 weeks, making it the fastest growing altcoin ETF since Ethereum launched in July of 24. My argument to this is The reason why I don't think this is overly bullish for the actual crypto market as a whole for XRP, we just took $1 billion from buying XRP tokens and put it into the ETF space, which by virtue takes it out of the the crypto space. So it's the fastest growing altcoin ETF since Ethereum launched in July of 2024, outpacing Bitcoin and Ethereum's early phases. Canary Capital's XRP ETF led with $245 million in net inflows on its November 13th debut, followed by Franklin Templeton, Grayscale, and Bitwise, creating a 15-day streak of consecutive institutional demand. Ripple closed a $1.25 billion acquisition of prime broker Hidden Road in late 2025. Trading volume on Ripple Prime tripled immediately after the deal closed. So that's just kind of like the news and the notes leading us up to this point. So the whole point of that is, with all of this, from the average person, if XRP were to break down right now for any reason, and let's say it gets below $1.999, the actual implication here to me would be felt once we break that point here, because we're building, which over time, it's building something that's going to make an apex somewhere in the middle of $1.77 and 82 if this continues to build. But you have to get through that $1.85. You have to get through certain levels. But if this breaks through, market dynamic, market psychology says, well, with all this good news, if we're breaking down, the average retail trader is going to sell at a loss now and just say, to hell with this. Anybody who bought yesterday, around right where we're at now, anywhere between $1.99 and $2.04 or $2.05 roughly. So you're within the ballpark, within a few percent either way. If it were to break down here, all those people are going to say, well, even with all this good news, I'm buying right now. That's where you get a lot of that. You can have that quick liquidity to the downside. You really can. So that's why I stressed that this morning. We've been stressing it, though. I think a lot of people came on yesterday just expecting it to have this huge breakout yesterday, but we've talked about if it's going to do that, maybe Monday, if it can hold this over the weekend, could be a day, but we really want this to break down to that $1.85 at minimum. Like, to me, you got to retest this area. If this is a bullish megaphone, the fact that it's stuck in this area, we came through, broke back, maybe we do back test back here and create the new low. And at least test this as a bullish megaphone, hold that support one more time, and then have this parabolic spike. Now, the only problem here is now you've created a big dip in this pattern if it happens, because now instead of it going up, 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 now you can go from here and be like, well, we got this resistance kind of thing. And then we come back across. This is why I say it's so important. Like, what if you start to create a more of a bunkered down approach here now, and you're like, oh, shit. Well, now it can't even come up to the megaphone. Now it's actually showing us that resistance is tightening on us. So now we got to get through this area. And that can happen because you can create the steam to push back up to the top of the megaphone. So this could be what's happening if we come back through. That's why it's so important. That's why I said the $1.999, because that's how it pulls through. You see how it meets like an apex in that exact spot. But technically $1.97, you would have to say, well, that would be more official. But we'll put this in that beautiful color because that shows the urgency. Let's make that a little bit bigger. Make this 4 point just for the urgency. But that's something we have to pay attention to. That's like the bullish and bearish side. If it gets to that side of town, that's how we start that little rundown. And we're not trying to scare anybody. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I just want to know where I can add some liquidity to this market if we start having some rundowns. I've been very clear. If we get a big dump here, and let's just say it does fall anywhere from 15 to 20 to 20. I'm not saying we're going to fall 30%, but if it were to fall 15 to 30% across the market, this would be the time you're buying. Because that means we're hunting the wick liquidity. And I know on XRP, this chart, we can't look at Binance because they over-exaggerate like they always do, and they liquidate everybody. But that's another form of a Binance chart, so that's going to not do us any better. But I mean, if you're talking about, and most of these, if they come hunt the liquidity wick, which I'm not sure they're going to, but you're talking about the downside liquidity here, still 32%. If we hunt that October 10th low, and a lot of times they do that, but the only way XRP can do that is if it invalidates a bullish megaphone, and that's why we don't really want it to break that $1.99 if you want it to just power out now. That's the truth. I was going to say there's no comments. It hasn't shown me comments in so long. I'm staring at the screen, but it never refreshed. How awesome. It stopped. showing me comments, and there's a bunch of them. Poppy Lou, welcome in, and thanks for being in Tom's Army for over 6 months with the XRP Predictor. Brendan, good morning. Let's see. Rob Clement, welcome in, and thanks for the talk about the heat map. Einstein, good morning. Some of the risk assets are now becoming utility assets. Yes, indeed. Nick Knack, welcome in, and good morning, says, hey, it shared it to you 1970 legend when I shared everything just now. See, that's good. That makes me happy that at least when I do it, it goes to somebody. I showed my friend your video. She said, why is he yelling? My Italian side, see? What can I say? A lot of people contort. Man, if they think I'm yelling now, what would they think from 2021 and 2022? My Lord. But thank you, Aurelie, for trying. I appreciate it. A gift a sub for Aurelie. Never gotten one yet, but eventually, hopefully will. Nick says, hello, Tom and community, sending positivity and good vibes for everyone. Amen to that. Amen to that. Positivity leads the way. Positivity over negativity. We want to be helpful, not hurtful in this community. Maple Man, thanks for being in town for 3+ months with the XP Media. Your notifications are working fine up in Canada, Tom. Hey, my Canadian friend is at least getting my my stuff. I love hearing that. I love hearing that. Let's see. Hey, Joseph Euler, thanks for being in Tom's Army for over 6 months with the XP Predictor. And also gifted a sub this morning to K. Roach. K. Roach, congratulations on getting that first month gifted sub and being in Tom's Army now with the emoji badge of me being abducted by aliens. That is my face superimposed on that emoji badge. I love it. Mr. Stott, welcome in, and thanks for being in Tom's Army for 3+ months with the XRP Meteor. Bearded Viking, welcome in. I hope Mighty Marcus is having a blessed morning so far as we continue to pray for Mighty Marcus in his battle. We ask our Lord and Savior for guidance on that young man. Very strong and brave man. And also for his father and family. Amen. Yahweh, Yahshua, we ask for your guidance. That's Jesus Christ for anybody who doesn't know. God watches over us and allows us guidance as long as more than one person preaches the name of our Lord, our Creator. And it's more about not pushing our religion, but having faith, having compassion, and showing love for all. Like, that's my 3 pillars of success. I lost 10% of people talking about faith. Ooh. Now that happens, though. I should be used to that. Speak the Lord's name and, 10% of the audience leaves. That's a shame, but that's okay. Nick got so wrecked by Casper. A lot of people did. A lot of people did. Fortunately for us, we seen it in the chart. And we knew something was wrong. It was at a breakout point. So I unloaded. A lot of people unloaded in our community. And now we're watching it. I just don't know the proper approach to get back in. So that's why I haven't done anything yet. But we'll look at it this morning. David Kennedy, welcome. Sander Warren, welcome in. Fed, the lender and buyer of last resort. 100% on the money. 100% on the money. That's a smart person in the comments. Pay attention to what that person says. Tango, welcome in. 26 for the fear and greed is crazy. I didn't see it, what it ended up. 26, so that's great. If it's moving down. Now it's 23. Excellent. Well, it was 23. Let's see. Yeah, 23. We're back to extreme fear. This is a great sign. Great sign. XRP closed at $2. Probably be worse if XRP pumped before futures market open. Damn right. That's so true, Furby. That is so true. UK Phil, thanks for being in Tom's Army for over 1 year with the I Told You So badge. Trading with J-Ride, thanks for being in Tom's Army for over 4 years with the XRP Phoenix badge. Let's close this. Let's close this. Let's close this. Let's go into the heat liquidation map real quick. Since I've scared a lot of people away speaking religion, but that's okay. I'd rather scare you away by speaking faith than lure you in by speaking satanic. That won't resonate with everybody, but it does to me. Looks like a topping reversal right now until we prove otherwise. And our strongest pocket of liquidity is down here at 2,700 and around 2,700. Big liquidity pockets when you get into this range. 27.20 down to all the way down here. You got liquidity pockets.
Michaela's in the ripped. Look how cute that little red frog is.
Aw. So she got down there safe?
Yeah.
Where's it at? Novi, you said?
I want to say somewhere around Nova.
Okay. Well, I'm glad she made it safe. It was a little snowy this morning. So that is Ethereum's liquidation map. So that shows some downside potential. Who cares if they leave? They aren't. No, it's just. I just speak in the moment. Just, it's kind of sad actually. The amount of people that have no faith. And once you speak faith, they just run away like scared. Let's see. There's a big liquidity pocket here for Bitcoin. 1.02 billion. Oh, this is what we talked about before. That big pocket. Once you get from 94 something to 95.7, it's still there. That'll continue to grow if we drop down. Man, it's so tough. It's so tough right now. Let's take a look into the 3-day right now and see how it's building. Maritime. Is it true that it's possible for XRP to fall 30 to 40% additional to where the price is now when Japan raises interest rates later this month Oh, it's not only possible for the crypto market and XRP especially. There could be this reason why we're building this head and shoulders going into next week. Like, it's not just possible. If the Bank of Japan raises rates, the implication of that, I'm just saying, like, I was going to wait until like the 45-minute mark so I didn't scare the rest of my audience away, but since you brought it up, last time Bank of Japan raised rates, how did crypto respond? So this is exactly what happened immediately following. So you guys can take the math and see. The last time the Bank of Japan raised interest rates in a way that surprised the market in late July 2024, crypto experienced a significant negative response, with Bitcoin price plummeting from 66,000 to around 55,000 in 1 week. So it lost 20% in 1 week. So if you don't think that that's a problem, if the Bank of Japan actually goes through and actually raises rates here, it's a big problem. Now, when they did a 0.5% because we were expecting it, crypto did go down, but this isn't what people were expecting. If the Bank of Japan does this would kind of be like the U.S. instead of lowering rates, coming in now and raising it. But if they do 3/4 of a basis point, imagine the U.S. You're expecting them to dump, and instead of us getting a 1/4 basis point rate cut on the 10th, we ended up getting a 3/4 of a rate point hike, 0.75 hike. The catastrophic effects. Now, that was how crypto would respond. How did U.S. dollar respond? I mean, this could be unbelievably bad. The carry trade's going to end. Everybody talks about the carry trade that officially is ending. When the Bank of Japan last meaningfully raised rates, ending negative rates in March 24 and adjusting yield caps, the U.S. dollar generally weakened against the Japanese yen initially due to higher Japanese yields and reduced interest rates, but the moves were often more volatile, with JPY gaining strength as markets anticipated further normalization, leading to a mixed but generally supportive trend for the JPY over USD. But it's gonna, and they've already unilaterally, think about it, Japan, and you have to keep looking at this because a lot of people aren't going to want to follow the let's just say the trail. But think about this: Bank of Japan gold purchases 2025. The Bank of Japan has not reported purchases because they don't purchase, they won't tell you. But they're buying a shitload. You have to go around to see where they're getting it from because they're buying it from private mines. Oh, I wish they would just show you. Oh man, I'm not gonna be able to find it on Google. Damn it. But no, not Bank of Japan. How about just Japan? Gold purchasing 2024 through 25. Japan has experienced a notable surge in domestic investor demand for gold, driven by weakening yada yada yada. I wish they would just say the truth, but they won't. They always show lies with Japan and China. But they've been buying a boatload of gold and precious metals to avert the U.S. dollar. Believe it. It's happening. It's a big problem here. Miss Jan, welcome in, and thanks for being in Tom's Army for over 4 years with the XRP Phoenix badge. That is unbelievable. And also a very trusted mod in here and in my community. I really appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that. Crypto scam. Wait a minute. Crypto scan. Hurry up, man. What? Zach Brown banned. Are you saying to buy banned right now? Is that what you're trying to say? I have a lot of knowledge about band. Let's see what band's doing. I'm not interested in buying anything right now, but let's see what's going on if we're getting a reversal, maybe. Oh, no. I mean, with band, you can't possibly try to buy it until it gets back on top of 38. Otherwise, if this falls out, the technical drop point from that pattern gets you all the way down to... Well, we're not going to talk about what it gets you all the way down to. We'll just act like we can hold 31.8 cents at the wick. That would be us recapturing this October 10th wick and then being able to hold here. Because if this broke down unilaterally, I don't like to talk about that target, but I would love that target because I'm going to use the same fund. So instead of having 10,000, there'd be 30,000 tokens if it came down there, since it's all liquid right now. But yeah, let's see if we get a majestic reversal in the market. I don't know. Maybe we could. Maybe we could, because we have to back test. Well, we did back test here. But let's just see how the market goes. Let's see if we have any fortitude here, because right now it's suggesting that this is pretty angled here. And if this breaks down that fall, even if it's in a channel here for band, on this breakdown, you got to look for that third point now that it's probably going to hit. So you'd be looking somewhere around 34. Maybe it takes longer. Yeah, so there's a lot to be desired here still for this pattern. Unless it is trying to break out and come back and retest and maybe more. Maybe this is an opportunity. And then you start to look at it more like, how would you have to look at this? Maybe it's a more majestic look like this. Let's change the size to 2. So maybe it is back testing this for a move up. So you could look at it like that. That's why right now is a make it or break a point in the market. It's not just band that's like this. There's a lot of things. So let's say it holds this. The next opportunity would be, let's see if it comes back up to 38. See if it runs around here. So there's a lot to be desired here. Whoever talked about band, that's a good eye, because it's at the action moment right now. Who said that though? Creamy Goodness says, nope, just enjoying the moment or the morning. Double bottom false breakdown. I like that. What, Julie?
It's me.
What about it? He's Creamy Goodness. Yep. Mary Time Matthew says, Tom, can we surmise that the bull market is over and we are officially in a bear market? No, because we've been in a bear market. Who the hell said we're in a bull market? My friend, we've been in a bear market. I called it in January. We never officially broke back into bull market territory. We've been in a bear market since January in almost everything. XRP double topped its cycle top, but we've been in a bear market for so long. The Johnny come latelys in the influencer space, they're all talking about in a bear market now. I hate to break it to everybody. We've been in a bear market for a long time. The bull market's been over. The next time we get into it, it'll be a reemergence into the bull market for the first time in more than a half a year on most assets. People are just late to the party. That's why I keep saying we're in accumulation still on most of the altcoins. They had a fake run up, but it came back down. No, not your ignorance, man. Listen, no. Not your ignorance. You're right. You're right about the bear market. You're not ignorant. You just didn't know anymore. That's not you not being smart enough. Actually, you have a keen eye because most people think that the bear market, we haven't even sniffed it yet, or they don't think that it's possible to ever be back in a bear market. The fact that you understand that it isn't a bear market proves you're not an idiot. So don't be so hard on yourself. You're not ignorant. You're actually above the grain. How about that? You're above the grain because you at least understand that we have to break out of a bear market. That shows that you understand we're in the accumulation zone. That's important in these times. Right, Julie? That's important to understand that you're in a bearish cycle because then you can approach it that way. Instead of on every run up, you become afraid because in a bull cycle, after the drop down, you'll succeed in higher levels, but it might break down to get the lower liquidity, but you break out even faster. In a bear market, you go up for that liquidity, but break down even more. So to be on the same page is good. This is good. Let's see. All right, so I want to click on this on the screen because I did it on mine just to make sure it would go on my tablet. But I want to pull this up because 1970 Legends a mod. That's why you can share a link, and I trust his links. I clicked on it too just to make sure it would open for everybody before I went on to here. And now it won't let me click onto my own. So that's what I'm talking about. I get shadow banned for my own stuff, and it makes me do stupid
Click onto my own. So that's what I'm talking about. I get shadow.
So if we click on what he put for X, this is all it's opening up to, FYI, everybody. He put on here, yes, the Bank of Japan is widely expected to raise interest rates this month. The Bank of Japan's next and thank you, 1970 Legend, for putting this on here. The Bank of Japan's next monetary policy meeting is scheduled for December 18th to 19th, with the decision announced on the 19th of December. As of December 13, 2025, the current policy rate stands at 0.5% raise this level in January of 25. A strong consensus among economists supports a 25 base point hike to 0.75%. That's 25 to 75, so that's a big differential, and they all support this. The highest level since 1995. Recent Reuters poll showed 90% of economists predicting this move, while a Bloomberg survey indicates 100% agreement among 50 analysts. Dude, 1970 Legend, like they say, not all heroes wear capes, but this is a great piece of information to just further expand on what I was trying to, show everybody a little while ago. I really appreciate you taking the time to share this. Bank of Japan Governor Kazuo Ueda has signaled consideration of the pros and cons of a hike, noting rising likelihood that economic and inflation projections will be met, with underlying inflation accelerating towards the 2% target. Sources close to the Bank of Japan, reported by Reuters, Japan Times, and Nikkei, confirm the bank is likely to proceed, viewing real interest rates as deeply negative and justifying further normalization. Markets have almost fully priced in the hike. While final decisions depend on incoming data, e.g. wage trends, U.S. policy impacts, no major shocks have emerged as of now, and the government is expecting to tolerate this move. This would mark the first hike since January of 25, continuing Japan's gradual shift from ultra-loose policy. That's unbelievably good information. Thank you so much for that, 1970 Legend. 0.75%. If that happens, that's not going to be good. If we get a drop that big, that would be devastating. Or if we get a hike that big, last time Bitcoin went down 20% in a week when they had a significant hike like that. That's a big drop for Bitcoin. And if they do a 0.25 hike, it won't be as bad. So anything in between. So a 0.25 would be Okay, well, that's not as bad as it could be. It gets to 0.50, especially 0.75. That's where you'd be like, oh my God, there's some serious stuff going on here. XRP at $1.95 is the strongest liquidity zone near us from a monthly perspective. And then above, you've got a lot of liquidity up here when we're ready to go up there. So I'm very curious to see how this transpires here in the next few days to a week. I want to see how we end up reacting. Ironically, 2 days after my birthday, we have to deal with this on Friday. So, the culmination. Oil spike will happen, but right now, this is one of the overall consensus I can make in the USA. For the general, I don't know, for the lack of a better word, sheep that walk amongst us in the USA, for the, what do you call them, Julie? What are the people that are just, they walk, talk, and speak the general narrative? What do I call them? Simpleton, I guess. Simpleton, sheep, for the lack of a better word. They are pushing the narrative no matter how bad pricing is in the USA, no matter how bad rates are, no matter how low the dollar is being devalued. All they say is, have you seen the cost of gas? It's under $3. Have you seen the cost of oil? So I think that narrative continues into early 26, and the price should go down probably another $10 to $15 a barrel first, if this plays the normal standard operating procedure. But once that happens, I'm going to be very hardcore in oil. There's going to be a little bit of a commodity flip in 26. Not all of my mining stocks, but some of it flips into oil, which is black gold. That always precedes the cycle of gold and silver expansion. So I've been watching this very, very closely. So before I leave, I want to go over this because my son, he's being very generous right now, but we're running low on time because he's getting into, you know how he is. So the last 24 hours, with Bitcoin, we have 49.56% going short, 50.44% going long. That's a shift. That's finally a shift here. 18.68 billion long, 18.36 billion short. So if we go down, there's about $500 million or $300 million or so that can be liquidated. Nothing major, but it is definitely a flip to the downside. With Ethereum, on the other hand, we have 48.88% going long, 51.12% going short, 15.82 billion going long, 16.5 billion going short, about 700 million that can be captured by going up instead of down. Quite the opposite of XRP or Bitcoin. And then XRP, 47.77% going long, 52.21% going short. Long is 1.10 billion, short is 1.20 billion, which means there's about 100 million at stake to be liquidated if the price goes up. I think it's been a great live. I'm glad some of you appreciate it. You misread it from the current 0.5. Oh, I gotcha. It can go from 0.5 to 0.75. I gotcha. So 25 base point is the consensus agreement. I see. Now I know what you were saying. My bad. I definitely understand now what you're saying. They are expected to raise at 25 to a total of 75 basis points. That makes sense because it's already at 50 or 0.50. Good commentary, 1970 Legend, to clarify it. That is needed. Much needed. Much needed. That's why I like to read through the comments. Especially when someone shares something. Excellent. I think we had a great live. A great live today. XDC on the trend down still, like we expected after the rise yesterday. That's why I said just let it happen. Let it happen. I know there's a lot of news coming out with XDC or Algo. A lot of people are asking me. I still am a big fan of Algo, but I don't hold it in the power moments right now until it proves it. So the last time we got rid of it was around the spike up at the double top when we said time to get rid of it, and we'll see how it acts as support, but we thought a bear flag, so we're looking at 11.7. Hasn't quite come down there yet, but if it breaks that, then we look at what I would like to see is it fill out this exhaustion wick from October 10th, get all that liquidity out of there, and then breach this 10.7 cent area, which is still on the uptrend. And I think that's the way that I want to see it happen. Because you have to surmise this in a way like that. Now, you could go lower if you want to say that it's like this, and I have no argument. You could do this, but in every action moment, it passed at spot. So you try to find the action moments. And the wick over here could have been a fake signal. And then if you put it here, then you could start to say, okay, well, maybe, it hasn't come down here yet. And, maybe it's not 10.7. And maybe what we're really looking for is a pull down here to like 8.8, which I would fully accept. It would make more sense and it would make my life a lot easier in the grand scheme looking at this freaking setup and wonder why it's doing this. Where that maximum exposure would be. You could even come down like that. There's just a lot of stuff you can do on this. That's why this is a very tough way to look at this with Algo's chart, because there is a chance that if we were to fall out officially, I mean, you're talking about, and I always like to look level by level, but Algo really, if it ended up having maximum, chaoticness, you'd be talking about all the way down here. So if you want to talk about maximum pain, 7.1 cents might be the ultimate buy, somewhere in that range. But that's a better than 40% drop from where we're at still. So that would take the whole market to go along the same line. So we have to see how this plays out. But yeah, if we all believe it, then shall be reality is what we make it. To be XRP will be the one underneath our great big sun, believe. That's another thing too, that I am also weighing in on everything. If these prices did drop to a level where we got a liquidation, and let's just say for some reason it found itself back under $1, where it started stabilizing, or it had a significant drop from here, I would expand back in deeper into XRP this next time around. There's no doubt about it. But as it is, you can't expand right now. And we were buying at 35 and 38, and some of us at 40 and 50 in the audience, and 70. It's too pricey right now. But if it gives you the opportunity, it comes back within there and you let it happen, and it does, and then for whatever reason, the market goes chaoticville, well, that's different. I'm looking at the re-expansion too, because I'm going to have the 3Xs. So whenever we figure out what the hell we're doing here, I'm going to figure out the proper breakdown and ratio between XLM and XDC. It'll be like a 25 to 25% into XDC, but that would still allow room, especially depending on how far the price comes down on XLM. Could leave upwards of 30,000 for room on XLM. It just depends how far down the price comes. If it comes below 20, if we start to hit this maximum composure, like down at 10, I would, oh my God. Like, because this is a rejection area, if we did get rejected here, technically the breakdown could be all the way down to 10.4 if we broke this and we would just reset. If that happened, I mean, I'm just telling you guys, if we ended up having a 50% market correction, you really got to pay attention to some real serious work here to be put in to try to expand portfolios. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but in the monthly, it suggests we could have a big catapult down. We're on the bottom side of these patterns. So if we got that rejection here, there is the daily suggesting a catastrophic drop. If it does break down, I'm just telling you, this is possible. And I'm begging for this to happen because of the liquidity we have on the sideline. If this happens, oh my goodness. So just be aware that things like this can really happen. Have a blessed Saturday. I'm going to let you guys go. I'm going to go make sure my son's doing good. And I'll try to keep us updated through the day with content. Be blessed, everybody.